This edition of Tech Garage, presented by Advance Auto Parts, is being brought to you by MSD, ignitions, distributors, coils, and more. AP Laser, leading the way. Steele Rubber, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. And by Advance Auto Parts. Let's get you back to the garage.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by Advance Auto Parts. Now, before the break, we told you we were going to scan the system to see if we'd retrieve any codes. We actually got 3, but the code of interest is a P0305. Now, a small thing that means a lot if you're working by yourself, get a code reader that's got a long pigtail like this one, so you can be out here under the hood. Some of the more modern code readers actually have Bluetooth, so you can have your diagnostic screen up on your iPhone or your iPad and make this a little bit easier. The P0305 is going to send me in the general direction of cylinder number 5, but to understand what that really means, hey John, we need an explanation.
That's right, that is a misfire code. Now the actual code P0305, that all means something. The P stands for powertrain, the 0 is a generic code, then the 3 is the actual ignition system, and the 05 is a specific code. That 05 means it's cylinder 5. Now you might ask, how does the car know it's cylinder 5? Well, I can show you right here. I pulled up MotoLogic. Professional techs use this. We get a good look at it right here. You can actually see it's misfire detection. The car is looking at crankshaft revolutions. 200 revolutions, type A code, 1,000 revolutions, type B code. Just computer talk, how it's working, how it's looking at it. But here's what it actually sees. I have a good illustration for you, and this is really neat because what's happening is the actual engine fires. Every time the engine fires, the crank has a pulse. So what's happening, I go 186, 186, and it knows everything's all right. But if I went 1 and there was a slow lag, and then 6, it missed that cylinder. And after it sees that, after a given period of time, it kicks that check engine light. Now that coil on plug system, we have it right over here. We can see exactly what Brian's working on and understand a little bit before we get under the hood. You can see right here, now our coil on plug, same thing as before. We actually have our primary side. Our primary side's coming in, and it's feeding our secondary side of the coil. Just a nice tight package. Everything's real good right here. You got it all going in, sparking right there. Secondary, primary. Come over to the board, fire it up. You can see I have a crank position sensor and a cam position sensor. Now my crank's telling it when to start, and the cam could be telling it sequentially when to fire. Here's a tip for you. A lot of times if a car doesn't start, it's usually the crank. If I unplug that, you see all the spark goes away, it's not going to start. Now on the other hand, I can unplug the cam position sensor and it still fires. It just goes into sometimes multi-bank firing. It knows what to do to get the car running, limp home mode, but it'll get you there. Now what Brian found is actually a coil on 5. Number 5's not firing. You can see we disabled coil 5 on this one. So what he has now, we probably suspects it's not a cam or crank sensor because the rest of them are firing. So if you have one, what we have to do over at the car now is he's got to look at the primary and secondary. We need the input on the primary, and we can do some secondary measurements to isolate what's going on with that system. Brian, how's it coming over there?
Well, John, we're ready to test ignition coil pack number 5. Now, we got a little lucky. It's up here at the front of the engine. We did have to remove the air plenum, but it's easy test to do. Remove the primary clip, pulls right off, and there's one mounting bolt. In this case, it's a 7mm. Work down in here, back it out, and we're going to lift this coil pack up out so we can get a good accurate test with a spark tester. Little tip, remove this bolt. You don't want to drop that down the hole. Ignition coil pack comes up out. I want to reconnect the primary connector so that we're sending an impulse to test this coil. And then a powerful little tool, a spark tester. We're going to create a ground right here. There's a good bracket I can grab hold of. We're going to slide the boot on, and what you should see, if this coil pack was working properly, is spark across this gap. I know that looks like a big gap, but it'll throw the spark there. Now you can hold it at this end and support it, and here's where you need a buddy. Hey Chase, go ahead and crank it over and let's see if this is sparking. We got no spark. You can kill it, thank you. We got no spark jumping that gap. We've got a problem with coil pack number 5. Now, here's what a lot of people do. You run to your local auto parts, you get one ignition coil pack, and you think you're in good shape. But this is a great opportunity to test it with a neighboring coil pack, maybe cylinder number 4. Happen to be lucky and have one of them in my toolbox, so I'm going to rerun the test with the exact same coil pack and see what we get. Primary comes off, primary goes on, listen for the clip, you got a good connection, reinsert it on the tester. Chase, go ahead and try it now. Now that is a spark. Look how far that spark's running. That is a properly performing coil. So, what does all this mean for you? Hey John, I think we got to replace coil pack number 5.
Yeah, well, look what I got for you.
Nice.
Yeah, I went ahead and got a whole set and a couple coils, but ta-da!
Love it. MSD.
Every single one of them. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what do I want to do with 8 coils? One of them's misfiring. Well, logically, maybe it doesn't make sense, but here's the deal. You've got 8 coils on this car. Chain's only as strong as its weakest link. So what happens is you replace a coil, it's got 90,000 miles on it. It's just a matter of time. The other coils are going to start to fail. And as they fail, you're going to come back and think it's that coil. It's probably not. After 8 times, you're going to wish you would have got the whole set. Now, a couple other tests you could make. Maybe you don't have access to the coil like Brian had, the other coil. So you can pull that coil out, which is the bad coil, and you can take the meter. You got a DVOM, you can go right in the garage and do this. Take your DVOM. We talked about earlier, the primary and secondary sides. Well, you can come across the secondary side by going to a terminal. Once I get touching that terminal, and I can come down to the bottom here. There we go. All right, it's showing about 5,000 ohms of resistance. Well, that's good for the secondary side, but that doesn't mean the coil is good. We also have to deal with the primary side. So if I come across the primary side on both of the leads, OL, it's out of limits, means it's going in, nothing's coming back out. So we have an issue on the primary. We're going to go ahead and replace it with these MSD coils. These are awesome. Here's the deal with these. If you look at this, it's an exact fit, exact replacement, nothing different. Well, that's where the similarity ends. When you get inside one of these are engineered spec with the materials to give you better performance on the primary and secondary, so you're not going to have any issues with this coil. This car is going to run a long time. Well, we'll get this one buttoned up, but you know, when we come back, we got to address that Jeep with the fuel systems, and we'll do that when we return with more Tech Garage.
This thing's going to run great.